rest of the room is now done. It is looking great. Small touch-ups, but nothing we can't do right at the very end. This is it. The last thing we have to do is this wall. Now this wall we're doing in an accent wall, and we're gonna do something a little different that I'm hoping will save us some money because the rest of this reno is gonna cost a decent amount. With this wall, we are doing two major things. We're adding lights to here so we don't always have to use this light, and we can do individual lights. So we're gonna add 2 reading lights above both sides of the bed. And then we're also going to add a pattern on here. Now with the pattern, we played around with a bunch of different designs and we basically settled on a couple things. So number one, we didn't want to do vertical. The problem with vertical in this room is because the entire bedroom set is offset to the left of the wall because of the way our doors open, you can't have a symmetrical pattern here because it actually looks off and it looks odd because it doesn't match it. You have a symmetrical pattern and then an asymmetric layout. They just didn't work well together. After that, we looked at something horizontal. So we looked at something like having like a half wall or something with a different color. And we decided if we're gonna do something horizontal, we want something with as little horizontal space as possible because we didn't want dust collecting. So we looked at that and then we looked at shiplap. So we're like, okay, well maybe we'll do shiplap. Shiplap on its own was super expensive to do this entire wall in shiplap, and we'd also have some seams and some other things to contend with. So I decided I wanted to try a new idea, which was covering this wall in hardboard, but spacing it out in 1/8" strips along here. And that way it gives a little bit of design to the wall, but it won't collect dust. It'll be super cheap. And it won't matter that our bed sits off-centered from the actual wall. So it should look really nice as well. The other nice thing too about the hardboard is I have to run all the electrical. So for the electrical, the way that's gonna work is I basically have a wire that comes down here, comes down, connects into an outlet over here, runs around the room to another outlet, which is oddly placed on that other wall over there. So what we are going to do is gonna go in the attic. We're gonna add a junction box up there. We're gonna splice in a new wire that's gonna run down, add a switch right here, and then add the wall light right above it somewhere in this area. And then we're gonna add another wire. We're gonna drop it down on this side. We're going to add an outlet over here first because the fact that we don't have an outlet on this side makes 0 sense. So we're gonna add an outlet. So each side has an outlet, a switch, and then a wall sconce. Oh, the other nice thing with the electrical is I don't have to worry about really nice drywall. I can take all the drywall out of here. I can re-vapor bury it. I can put everything back in. I can do a skim coated drywall, something simple to make sure the wall's flat, but I don't have to have it perfect because then we're gonna put the hardboard over top of that. So the first step is actually gonna be, I gotta grab a bunch of wire. I'm not gonna obviously cut the power or do anything yet, but I'm just gonna go in the attic, drop the wire into the wall, start on the electrical. I'll shut off power and connect to the junction box right at the very end to make sure it actually works. So that's the plan. Let's go in the attic. I'm gonna bring my wire. I'm gonna try and get that laid out first, make sure there's no crazy things I'm not prepared for. I've also got them organized. 2 separate spools to make sure I know which is which. I'm gonna bring up my foldable ladder here, and that way I can have something to lay down on if I need to do 2 trips. I guess I'll have to do 2 anyways. Let's see how cold it is in here. Change the plans. I do not want to go in the attic. It is -30 outside today. It is cold and it is scary and it is small. I don't have like 2x8s in my ceiling. I have 2x6s maybe, but it was really small. And there's a lot of insulation, which is great. There's like 12 inches of insulation. So it's really nice and toasty in our house all the time. But I didn't want to be walking around up there. I didn't feel like I had enough surface area. So instead of doing that, I am going to, instead of putting the junction box hidden in the ceiling, I'm going to add the junction box into the wall behind the bed, and then I'll add a cover plate. That's my plan. So I'm gonna start by opening up around this stud here. There's basically a line electrical that comes in here, and then it goes somehow over this way. So I'm gonna start by cutting a section out about yay big, and just open up the wall, and let's just see if I'm actually correct about that to start. Okay, so stud is here, so I'm gonna cut halfway. When I actually started to open up the wall for this, I was actually better than I thought. So I thought the wire was coming in through the ceiling and then down, but it was actually coming over from like the bathroom. So basically horizontally down and then vertically and then horizontally back over. So it was actually a lot more simple, and I never had to go in the attic in the first place. Now, essentially at this point, I drew a little diagram on the wall, which I'll walk through in a bit here, but I started to figure out how I was gonna map everything into this junction box so that way I could have power, go to this outlet, then continue to the next one down the wall and use the other outlet. Then at the same time, up to the switch switch, and then up to the light after that. Now, if I learned anything from this, especially when it comes to doing some of this electrical work and breaking in here, make the cutout you need way bigger than you actually think you do. I made an absolute patchwork mess of this drywall. I should have just cut like a 2 foot by a 6 foot section out and really opened it up so I could see what I was doing. But in reality here, I just cut out piece and then little piece and then screwed up with the vapor barrier. And so this first one looks like an absolute mess, but I did get the job done, and I'll walk you through the wiring.
Right, so first one is fully done. I'll show you what I did. So essentially we had one wire that was running through over here, coming down to this outlet right here, and then back out and down the wall that way. What I did is I basically added an junction box here. So this box has all the connections in there. So there's basically 4 wires. Kind of looks like this, where the one main power wire goes in, one now power wire goes down to the outlet, the other wire continues on its path, the other wire goes up to a switch, which then continues to the light. So you can see junction box, wire goes up, I stapled it, resealed it. This is the switch for the light, which goes above our bedstand, and that's the box now for that. So this one took a while to figure everything out, but now that I have this figured out, I'll take everything I've learned and put it on the second one. Biggest learning was drywall. I kept cutting out little pieces, do bigger. The reality is the drywall I'm doing here will not matter. It will be hidden. I'm going to cut out a bigger rectangle and replace this all in one piece. The other side, I'm going to take out a massive piece and do it all in one shot. Give myself enough room that I can drill in here because I couldn't get this in straight, so I got to redo this. Give myself enough room to do this one, do everything I need, and do it on both sides of the stud. And that way I can take the entire piece out, put a new piece of drywall, which goes over top the stud as well, which is good, and then I'll attach it with some more 1x3s on the sides of it. Now that you know that, the second one should be pretty simple.
So essentially what I did here is I used the first one as kind of my template for how far I need for like my drill to be able to put in so I can attach those lights to the studs, and how much room I need for the vapor barrier, and you know where I'm going to add 1x3 blocking in the future. Basically figure out like a rough opening of how big this thing should be. And then I basically just took my level, cut some different lines on it, and then marked it out in different places, and that way I could just cut out one big piece. Now, spoiler alert, even though I did this, it still wasn't even big enough, and I'm pretty sure I had to do some patchwork after on this. So yeah, basically always cut it out bigger than you need when you're doing something like this, especially because it will never be seen. Now, just because I'm curious, what is your favorite renovating tool? Because I definitely the oscillating tool. I use this thing all the time for so many different circumstances. I use it on drywall, I use it for wood, I use it for just so many different little projects around here. But the reality is it's also my least favorite tool. I hate how loud it is, I hate the vibration it creates, I hate how hard it is to get a straight cut. But somehow it just seems to be the tool I always go back to. And yes, I hate it, but if you keep coming back, there's got to be some reason that it's good. So here are the steps that I basically took to figure out and put all the wiring. So I essentially measured out from each one and tried to put them at the same height so it looked good across the board. But I actually didn't do as good of a job as I thought because I did not think about the horizontals later, and I'll walk through that at some point. But essentially I had to figure out a couple main spots. I had to figure out where the outlet was going to go because this outlet did not exist on the wall. I had to figure out where the switch was going to go, and then I had to figure out where the light and the junction box were going to go. So basically 4 different locations, and you can see on the studs there, I marked them out with a Sharpie so I could figure it out. Once I had that in place, I could put in my vapor barrier. So around your outlets, you have to use like a vapor barrier cover and put that in. So I put that in first, and then I put the outlets kind of all in their rough spot. So it worked up here and roughly pulled all the wires through with lots of extra. And that way I could kind of have it all roughly wired up. And then I could get a feel for how much I needed to basically complete all the different circuits on here. And there's one thing I actually didn't show. It's because there was an existing electrical line in the wall that I was tapping into to make sure the circuit continued to the outlet to my left. That wire was actually going to be too short now because I had to cut into it and put it in a box. So I had to pull a complete new wire from side to side.
Okay, let's see if it all works. Charger, outlet, power, wall light. That works. Outlet, power. Did it. All right, electrical is up, drywall is repaired. This one I just easily replaced. I'm gonna mud and tape and make it look semi-decent. I think this is 3/4 inch drywall, and I only have 1/2 inch drywall to repair it. I didn't know about that before I started stitching it in, so I'm gonna have to float this whole thing to try and get it smooth, which I wasn't planning for. But yeah, it's definitely a little different, unfortunately. A little more work, it's gonna be okay.
Now, like I said, the nice thing about this is the next video in this series, we're going to be adding the wall over top this. So all that matters is it's flat. It does not have to look good. So this is pretty simple taping. We're essentially laying down mud, putting tape, and was this even necessary? Probably not. Like, for strength wise, what's this going to do, right? It's completely hidden. It's never going to be there, but it's practice. It's work at drywall. Drywall is very tricky. So anytime you have to practice at your techniques for this, I take advantage of. And unfortunately, honestly, I didn't even take advantage of this because I didn't try and be clean. So I probably didn't even learn anything with this. And it was honestly probably just a big waste of time. Now, putting in the tape was a waste of time, but the thing that was not was the fact that I used 1/2 inch drywall, and on this exterior wall, they used 5/8 inch drywall. And what that meant was if I didn't float a flat layer over top, when I added the board and bead over top of this later, you would see it kind of curve and hump down to match that 1/2 inch. So I wanted to not have that issue, and that's why I'm essentially adding this in. Tape, totally unnecessary. The other thing I did with this, which was a mistake, was I used some of like my 24-hour set drywall mud, and that just basically delayed and took a really long time to dry because I was doing these really thick layered coats on here. So yeah, in the future, I'll probably never have to do this again. I think so, but at this time, a little bit of practice, things could be worse. Now, because that drywall was going to take so long to dry, I've decided there's finally time to go around the room and then add all my new outlets on here. So I have these easy quick connect Leviton outlets where the wires just kind of push into them and you don't have to curl the wires or do any stuff like that anymore, which was really nice. So I honestly just went around the room pretty quick here, and I added like 5-10 outlets here between all the different switches and outlets, and I did it in like 5 or 10 minutes. Just cut the old wires off, basically stripped them back so you could get there, and then it was super easy to basically push connect and keep moving. Now, normally changing up the light switches you leave till the very end, and this wall is not even completely done yet, but because these walls that are painted, they're completely done, I felt it was safe to go around, add new light switches, and just give myself a little win. Test it. Yeah. This goes over far enough. Yeah.
Wow.
We did it.
I turned on my volume.
Oh, I did electrical. Thank you. Now, electrical was by far the most expensive part of this project. So our costs here, we have our junction boxes were $40, whole spool of wire $210. These dimmer switches and lights were $70 and $40. All the outlets were $20 at a couple bucks a piece. Cover plates $15, staples $8, and then the vapor barrier covers were $20, bringing our total cost to $420. But I'm probably missing a couple things, so call it $450.